Call to order, Buhl City Council meeting, Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. We'll start off, as we agreed, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, you want to lead the way?
It's been a while.
It has.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Mr. Jeffries, would you please take the roll?
I will. Counselor Hadrava.
Here.
Counselor Keeley.
Here.
Counselor Loeffler.
Here.
Counselor Towner.
Here.
Mayor Carter.
Here.
Administrator Jeffries is here. City Engineer Jamnik is here. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the agenda, do we have any additions to the agenda?
Mayor Carter, we do have one addition that came in today, kind of late. I'd like to add it as business item 8H1. It has to do with a street closing request, and we will take that up as 8H1, please.
Nothing more?
No, sir.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda is approved. Reports from department heads.
I guess that's me this evening.
Staff only?
Staff only. Just a couple of things this evening, just a couple. Firstly, we will have our water tower inspection and assessment starting on September 15th. And after this is done, it's going to be about a month. And we will have an assessment report in by about mid-October, where we will meet with the company and determine the condition of the various facilities and have some ideas about where we go moving forward. Engineer Jamnik will definitely be involved at that point, and we expect it about mid-October. Also related to some construction, we continually have been talking about the what we call the punch list from the CIP project, the big project. Want everybody to be aware that yes, June 17th was our date, but we are continuing to talk about things. They are on the radar, things are going to be addressed, and don't believe that we've just overlooked anything. We have not, and we do not yet have a complete schedule on whether everything will be buttoned up on the punch list before the end of this construction season or not, but we are going to be conversing about that here in the near future again as well. So it's still on the radar, it's still going to happen. That's all that I have.
Thank you. Moving on to Citizens Forum. I assume nobody has signed up to present anything to the council, correct?
No one has signed up.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, A, the minutes from the regular city council meeting, August 15th, 2023, claims, payroll number 8 in the amount of $2,350, payroll number 17 in the amount of $17,709.99, accounts payable at the amount of $42,813.64, with a total of $62,873.63. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. Mr. Jeffries, can you just touch on, under accounts payable, why there is an addition of that $560.82?
We do our accounts payable in batches. The batches come out as a report that are given to you folks. On occasion, there's other items that come up for payment after a batch has been run. I decided that in this instance, there are two reports, there were two batches. They are included in the parenthetical figure under accounts payable. The first report is for 42,252.82. The second report is for 560.82. I only indicate that those are two separate reports by putting those on there.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to business. Item A, consider establishing City Hall summer hours as year-round regular hours. The city modified and adjusted the hours which City Hall is open during the middle months of the year. In May of 2023. The current hours at City Hall are Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Friday, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. From the day after Memorial Day through Labor Day, staff reports that this arrangement has been and is working well and is likely to continue to adequately serve the needs of the city if this arrangement is extended. Recommendation is to adopt the current City Hall summer hours as year-round regular hours beginning immediately. Do we have a motion to place into effect the current summer hours at City Hall as year-round regular hours effective immediately? The new year-round regular hours for which City Hall will be open for business are Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Friday, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll support.
Okay. Now, discussion. First off, Diana's not here to speak for her position. She's in favor of this, Mr. Jeffries?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, no doubt in that.
Okay, excellent.
Has there been anybody that has raised concern about it when they called in and found out the new hours?
Not to my knowledge.
The people that I've talked to when they found out, I mean, they complained in a non-serious way, so.
For losing 5 hours on Friday?
More just, oh, why is it changing, but not,
Yeah.
like I said, in a non-serious way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
More or less, it's been like this for this long, why are we changing it?
Right.
Right.
I don't think it's really impacted anybody in a negative way. I can't imagine you get many visitors to City Hall to begin with, so. I still think the extra hour in the day covers more people either before or after their
Right.
9 to 5 type job.
Yes, agreed, and if I were to do an unmeasured weigh-in on it, it's half and half. Folks that are there between 7 and 8 and folks that are there between 3 and 4, you know. And coming into the end of the week, folks who come in late in the afternoon on Friday, I don't think it's reasonable to expect staff to have to complete whatever it is that they want, that they can't take care of at the window. You know, so maybe some follow-up goes forward until the next week anyway. It's very unusual, but it does happen. It appears to me that there is more value in the 7 o'clock opening than there is on the till 4 o'clock on Friday remaining open.
What was the hours prior? Sorry, I can't remember.
8 to 4, Monday through
8 to
Friday.
4, okay. I would prefer, like, letting other people to chime in rather than us making that decision, like having the public kind of share what they think.
That's why they voted for you. That's the tough part.
I was wondering the same thing, if a guy shouldn't just table it for even a couple weeks and see what kind of feedback, let them give the option to view this and watch it, and
I'm gonna chime in here too. I actually work for the city of Chisholm, you know. We also went to hours very similar to this, and it does just take a little bit of time for everyone to figure it out, but it is a positive, more for the city than it is, it really is a positive to do these type of hours, because we have the longer hours during the week for the 4 days. And on Friday, I also work in the same kind of situation as Diana does. We don't get a lot of people on a Friday afternoon, and it outweighs to have that extra hour during the week than it does to have somebody sitting here with nobody on a Friday afternoon. Your city will get used to these hours.
Yeah.
So, because I work this, I see it, and we've done it now for a year and a half. And it just takes a while, but it's worked great over there. And yes, it is a change, and change is good. It doesn't have to always be the same that it's been for, 50 years here. So I'm all for moving forward, just because I've worked in this situation and I've seen the change of the city, and we're much bigger over in Chisholm than we are here in Buhl, so.
Yeah. And we have had a 3-month trial period, so people have had time to either come to us or to the city, and this isn't in stone. If we change it, we can
Right.
switch back.
That's what I was gonna say too. It's,
I think that can
we,
be maybe
we
added.
can make adjustments to it at any time. If it's not something the community favors, and
If it starts not working out, and I think you can maybe add that, maybe we might have to go back and take our recommendation or motion back to include that we can change these hours upon need of the city.
I prefer doing something like that than, yeah. Because I don't mind the hours at all, but I would rather prefer to see what other people think too. But
well, that's the thing, is you're gonna hear both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And whether, who's the loudest is who's gonna get their way, and that's usually the case always. But if it's actually functioning in your circumstance over in Chisholm, I don't see why not.
It's very quiet on Friday afternoons, and we get a lot more people on that extra hour during the week than we do on the Friday afternoon. And like
Right.
Mr. Jeffrey stated, there's not a lot you can do anyway on a Friday afternoon to help somebody out in a situation that they're coming in and looking for. And if they're paying their bill, we have the drop box, and so, again, I'll just pass on what we deal with, and so,
Yeah,
Yes.
I work. Oh, sorry.
it's also good for employees too.
very good for the employee.
As an employee getting off early on Friday, yeah, you put in some more hours during the week, but that's a peace of mind. I mean,
Right.
that's,
Did you know the next thing you're gonna hear, well, is that what Trent's gonna start doing? Are we gonna start doing it for all the city employees? I mean,
it's true.
that's what's gonna happen.
So maybe what we should do is extend,
Temporary hours.
I guess,
extend the summer hours until further notice. Can we amend the motion to that?
or
Instead
just-
of making it permanent?
To the
if
end of
people
the
feel
year.
If everybody feels better?
If everyone feels better, and you're going to hear more, and you will, because we do, but they're like, oh, I forgot you guys were closed, and then they're like, oh, we're so happy that you have this. So, again, it goes both ways. I hear both things, but it is very good for the staff. Our guys in the garage don't care, and it's just, we never pass it on to them because they don't care. They're happy for us. So I'm just, personal note, I'm passing that on, so.
I work 8 to 4:30. I'd never be able to make it in here otherwise, without missing some work. So I think this works for accommodating
working
citizens
people.
that work like me. Yeah.
I work the same hours, 8 to 4:30.
So
Should we,
amend it to extend temporary hours, I can.
until further notice?
But I mean, it's almost implied, isn't it? Like, 'cause we can change it back.
Yeah.
But
It is, but if I may suggest, you could just change immediately until December 31st.
Yeah, and then readjust at
Revisit.
31st, yep.
okay.
Yeah, but then everybody will have had their say, We'll see how it's working, you know.
Well, I guess some people might have thought, okay, well, if it's just for the summer, I won't raise a fuss, but.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And just, that's how ours started out too.
Oh.
And then we asked to have it because it works so well. And that extra hour really makes a difference for the community, more so than the Friday afternoon, 5 hours. 4 hours.
All right. Sounds like the general consensus here is to extend summer hours till the end of the year. So, I would ask
Me.
you to make that amendment.
I will amend my motion to place in effect the current summer hours until the end of 2023, where we will revisit it.
Excellent. And Randy, you seconded that?
It was a long time ago, I don't remember. It was me, right? I believe so. Yeah, I'll support.
All right. Any further comments, questions, discussion? This is just a regular motion, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, with nothing more, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Great work, everybody. Moving on to item B, approval to renew Minnesota Rural Water Association membership subscription for 2023 to 2024. The Minnesota Rural Water Association exists to provide the latest information, education, and technical assistance to protect our public waters and improve the quality of life in Minnesota. BUHL has been a member of the MRWA for quite some time and receives substantial benefit and value out of its membership. Of particular note is the assistance provided by the MRWA for the development, implementation, and ongoing maintenance of BUHL's wellhead protection plan. Additionally, the MRWA offers continuing education and technical assistance programs for water professionals, which include BUHL's public works personnel. Furthermore, the MRWA has been a valuable partner in assisting with identifying and seeking potential grant opportunities for eligible water-related initiatives. Do we have a motion to authorize the city to renew its associate membership with the Minnesota Rural Water Association for August 2023 through July 2024 in the amount of $400?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion.
I know that MRWA is really good, and it talks about the opportunities for the training. A lot of the training is for free, and the people that hold water licenses can take these classes and get credits where the city won't have to pay for training. They need to keep so many hours depending on what kind of license they have. So they work very well with this group, and I believe there's a training coming up on Thursday even. I don't know if Trent is going or...
I don't know if he is or not. I don't believe he needs to, but I guess I don't know.
Yeah, you know, every time that you have a training and it's free, I think it's eight credits they get if they go to Mountain Iron, because they have to have, depending on what his license is. This is a very good program right here, and they help with all the other lots of things. So it's very much recommended that we spend the $400.
I agree too. Anything we can do as far as protecting our water resource here, and this has a lot to do with it.
It does.
And another big thing is the potential grant opportunities. You know, they see that before we may, and that may afford us an opportunity for it. So.
I know it costs a little bit more, but would there be any significant benefit to being an active member or a voting member of the board?
You hit the nail on the head, Commissioner Towner. You would become a voting member, and you could also have the ability to run somebody for the board. I appreciate what you say. I think we should look at that for the future. I'm not certain I see any immediate benefit in that. And the membership fees for voting members are based on a minimum, I think, of $423 for X amount of hookups.
$420 for 422, and then it increases.
And it increases from there, so
Yeah.
I didn't run the numbers out, but it would be, I would think, 800 plus.
Okay.
And I don't immediately see a big additional benefit for that. However, that might change next year if we get a few things out of them this year.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing,
So it has the water and wastewater technical. I didn't realize it was encompasses wastewater as well. I guess I missed that. Duly noted.
any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
I
Those opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item C, Resolution 23-59, authorizing the City of Buhl to make application to and accept funds through the Minnesota Department of Health Source Water Protection Plan Implementation Grant Program for a water meter for the City of Buhl Municipal Water Well Number 2. The city's wellhead protection plan, designed to protect its drinking water supply from contamination, is administered through the Minnesota Department of Health in conformance with Minnesota rules. The city partners with the Minnesota Rural Water Association for the implementation of this plan, which has been updated and amended for 2023. One main activity and action in the 2023 update is to look at considering procuring a new water meter for municipal well number 2. Staff has investigated potential opportunities for funding sources and grants to help accomplish these objectives, and with the assistance of the MRWA, identified that a water source or a source water protection plan implementation grant through the Minnesota Department of Health may be available for this initiative. Do we have a motion to approve City of Buhl Resolution 23-59, authorizing the administrator to make application to the Minnesota Department of Health for a source water protection plan implementation grant for potential funding to support acquiring a water meter for the City of Buhl, well number 2, and to accept said funds from the Minnesota Department of Health if awarded?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. Mr. Jeffries, do you have anything to add to that?
Here's a great example of that membership in the Minnesota Rural Water Association. We've selected the pump. It will fulfill what we call Wellhead Protection Program item number 28 for ongoing wellhead protection plan initiatives, and it's about a $1,500 purchase.
For the meter.
Correct.
Who installs that meter then?
I would think we would do it.
On our contingency strategy sheet here, numbers 25 and 26, they say if an opportunity arises, one of them being purchasing a generator. The kind of generator that is in mind for this, does that exceed the amount of the grant maximum, $10,000? Or is that?
This will come up for conversation a little later.
Okay.
The answer is our strategy is to do it in phases in order to maximize our leverage with the available grant funding.
Okay.
But I guess we can talk about it now.
Excellent, thank you.
One of the improvements that we have identified with regard to our ongoing present storage and distribution system is, should there be a power outage, then we have no way of getting water from the ground up into the tank. the ground storage tank has to pump water up to the elevated storage tank, and it gets distributed throughout town from the elevated storage tank. Getting a emergency backup generator will allow for water to be moved at any time from the ground storage to elevated storage. This would help in increasing the calculated supply that we have existing as we look at it in terms of fire capacity and or other use needs. But what I guess I'm saying is with an emergency genset that you could use at any time too, you can at a moment's notice refill the elevated tank, which in some instances might be a big advantage. So that being said, our rough numbers for a genset is 50 grand. So we're looking at a threefold approach to it, with phase one being acquiring the generator itself. It shows up, we get it, and we have it. Phase two would be mounting or setting that generator, which is going to require some foundation work, maybe some soils work, and that would be a separate grant, same program for the setting of the equipment. And then the third phase would be the electrical hookup of the system, which again, of course, would not work unless there's power to it. And that is being identified as a complete third phase. All three, said and told, we're looking at about, like I say, roughly a $50,000 bill that we hope to leverage in 3 grant cycles over the course of 2 years.
Through this one, right? Because I know I mentioned something about being run in September and was it March or?
Correct. Correct.
I just like this one because we don't have to have matching funds. Yeah, that'd be great.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. This being a resolution, Mr. Jeffries, please take the roll.
Councillor Hadrava.
Yes.
Councillor Keeley.
Yes.
Councillor Loeffler.
Yes.
Councillor Towner.
Yes.
Mayor Carter.
Yes.
Motion prevails, carried 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, resolution 23-60, authorizing the city of Buhl to make application to and accept funds through the state of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Community Forestry Management Shade Tree Program, Bonding Grants Program. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources recently announced 2 grant programs aimed to address community forest health issues. The Shade Tree Program Bonding Grants Program aims to enhance community forest health and encourage and promote the removal, replanting, and or replacement of shade trees to provide environmental benefits and establish a more diverse community forest better able to withstand disease and forest pests. This program seeks to expand the biodiversity and maximize environmental benefits of green space by planting shade trees. Excellent. We have a motion to approve the City of Buhl Resolution 23-16, authorizing the administrator to make application for a State of Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Shade Tree Program Bonding Grant for improving community forest health and to accept said funds from the Department of Natural Resources if awarded.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion. Mr. Jeffries, I just have a quick question on the wording here.
Yes, sir.
Department of Natural Resources Shade Tree Program Bonding Grants Program Grant. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
That's a lot.
I know.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, just real quick, this can help the city with, like some of our streets, you see the old pictures of Buhl, there's big beautiful trees down all these streets, right? And there's some places there's lacking. This can help fund
Yes,
that? Okay,
yes.
excellent.
And especially with regards if we have any ash trees that we may identify and want to replace as well.
Okay.
But it's not limited to that.
Okay. Excellent. I'm a huge advocate for putting trees in the ground. Any further discussion?
I'm not against trees, don't get me wrong. How much time would you say like this level of grant is in like staff time? Like I would assume this is one of the shorter ones.
Absolutely, yeah, it would
Compared
be.
to others.
Yes, it would be one of the shorter ones. I guess the answer to this would depend upon, it would be great to have some kind of a baseline of information of where we sit in terms of healthy versus questionably healthy trees versus where we might want some more, where they used to be. And that that database would assist in decision-making and cut some staff time down.
That database may be the Public Works boys.
It very well may
They
be.
should have a good handle on what's going on with the trees in town.
Or possibly the engineer, there's existing conditions that are typically a part of construction drawings and construction drawing packages. So we could identify, one of the activities is always the preparation of the site after doing whatever with the existing conditions. So in many instances, if there is tree removal, that's a pay item to contractors by the amount of trees there are. So we could possibly get that information from our construction drawings and documents as well.
If it's not something we've already gotten through that or would be getting that through that anytime soon, the what's it called, that sorry guys, long weekend, the priorities and whatnot that we were going to set out, that plan we talked about earlier in the year that we might do next year because it wasn't in the budget this year. I believe in that packet towards the end it showed a map of the current road conditions, which ones need currently need.
In the comp plan?
Yeah, I think so. Is that what it's called? Comprehensive plan? Yeah, there was a map there that showed like the road conditions throughout town, which ones need soon, don't need. Would we be able to do something like some sort of survey included in the comprehensive plan?
I guess I'm not following your tie-in to the comprehensive plan.
Well, the comprehensive plan had a map showing the streets that are in need of repair.
I wish it's dated now.
Different levels, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were gonna update that,
Right.
we'd be able to tie in trees at the same time if we aren't gonna do it prior to that?
Well, that's certainly an opportunity that we could discuss in that, yeah. Yeah. Whether or not we want to dedicate resources in the comp plan for that, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. It might be, everybody might be as good of an information source as everybody else. What streets need trees, you know?
Right. And where's the dead problem trees at?
Right,
People will come to City Hall and let
Right,
you know if
I
they have
had-
a problem tree
yeah.
or something to that effect. And if there's one that's gotta go down, you can put one back in its place.
And what I also don't know at this point is how much is a new tree? $600? I don't know. How many trees can you get for whatever's available? That's gonna help shape the scope of any project. Because I'm pretty sure we're not gonna get 1 million trees out of these.
Any trees is good.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion on resolution 23-60? Hearing none, being this is a resolution, Mr. Jeffries, please take the roll.
Counselor Hadrava.
Yes.
Counselor Keeley.
Yes.
Counselor Loeffler.
Yes.
Counselor Towner.
Yes.
Mayor Carter.
Yes,
Motion carries and prevails 5-0. Thank you.
thank you. Item E, Damien's second edition, construction update. Schedule for the 2023 final phase of construction work on the Damien Second Edition was modified and extended in May of 2023 in order to explore and pursue potential project funding. Additional funding was ultimately secured and received in August 2023, and the project remains on schedule. Staff has recently met with the city engineer and the contractor to discuss, and 2023 project construction activities will commence on or about September 18th, 2023, with projected completion of the project activities in the first week of October. City engineer is available to discuss the specifics of the project and the construction activities. So, we should be looking at work in that development September 18th, again, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then we're looking at first week of October for completion.
Yeah, we don't have that 100% nailed down, but they're gonna, they're gonna put the curb and gutter down and everything else on Damien's Edition. They're actually gonna start milling the streets on September 14th. I found that out this afternoon. And this includes the work on Woodbridge, east end of Woodbridge, the Jefferson Street, and that work in Seville. That's over in addition to the Damien's Edition work. So all four of those components are part of the project that needs to be completed. So they're gonna mill Jefferson, go down, grind off the bituminous Jefferson, kind of cross the intersection into Roberts there, and Woodbridge. And that's just gonna be the start of it, and then it'll show up with a full crew right after that. I think that's a Thursday, but the 18th is a Monday, so sometime in then they'll be starting to work, so.
Okay.
And
John.
try to get a nail down the date of paving, and I couldn't do that, but we're well aware of it, gotta get it done this fall.
What do they do with that material they mill up?
They actually bring it back and recycle it at their bituminous plants.
Okay, so that goes back into the mix?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've done that before where we had stockpiles of millings, like up at the city boneyard or wherever. It's good material. I know Trent likes it for, patching alleys and things like that, so.
Definitely.
But yeah, right now, they'll mill it and they'll take it off, and that's typically reflected in their bid too, so. They got some recycled material.
So we should be seeing by the time snow flies,
Yes.
that ball field development should have curb gutter, both lifts of pavement,
Yes, both
Okay.
types of bitumen.
and then that one block on Woodbridge.
Yeah, that long block,
Yeah, the end one, the
Yeah,
far east one.
That's one long block.
So we should see that paved. Jefferson by the bank, right?
By the-
Or am I? Wait. Jefferson.
From the skating rink. up
Yeah. Okay.
across,
Sorry. Yep.
Across to Roberts.
We
Where
should.
the road, where that big hump.
Yep, yeah.
And it'd be taking that down and connected to Roberts.
Connected to
Yeah,
Roberts.
I got my roads mixed up. Apologies. So we'll see that paved by
Yes.
snow. And what was the other one?
Seville.
Seville, the one by the bank, correct?
Yeah, we're gonna fix that big heave, that's where the storm sewers
Yeah.
heaved up there, and then pave that, so.
Okay,
When they come to town, they wanna pave everything,
Yep.
so it'll all be done.
understandable.
Yeah.
So we should see all of those completed by snowfly?
So they told us, yes, yeah.
Hope so.
What are your
Sounds
thoughts,
like
Mr.
that's
Construction
good
Worker?
man.
You'll know it's done when it's done. Because as you can hear right now, that's what you fight.
Yeah,
Mother Nature, when she turns it on, you gotta turn it off.
yeah. Okay, good. Council, you have any questions for Engineer Jamnik? Mr. Jeffries, you have any comments, questions on the information here?
Not on this item, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, John. All right, moving on. Item F, water tower maintenance and inspection activities update. The city approved undertaking a comprehensive washout, condition assessment, and disinfection of the city's water tower storage and distribution system in May of 2023. Utility service company, has company, correct, Mr. Jeffries?
It is.
Okay. Incorporated was selected to perform these services. USC will be on site beginning September 15th, as Mr. Jeffries stated earlier, to begin activities which are expected to last less than a week. There's anticipated to be some disruption to the water distribution system, including periods of water service interruption, although every effort will be made to minimize this impact on the community. A condition assessment report will be compiled and drafted and is expected to be received in mid to late October. The findings of this assessment will be valuable and utilized to further evaluate the city's water storage and distribution system infrastructure needs, options, and alternatives for the future. Mr. Jeffries, do you have anything to add?
Looking forward to this, looking forward to the report, looking forward to conversations with the engineer and the company to determine our options moving forward.
Yeah, it would be really nice to know where things stand with that. And then we can find a direction forward.
They might even have a recommendation on backup electrical power too. What works best, or suggestions, type of generator. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Indeed. Good point.
Well, I'm sure they'll have suggestions. Do they do install work too?
I doubt it.
Oh, just inspections? That's good.
But they would know. They have seen what operates
yeah.
and works most efficiently.
Definitely.
Yeah, but if they don't do the work themselves, you can trust what their opinion is. 'Cause
Yes.
Right. They don't have a dog in the hunt.
I'm gonna use that. All right.
What kind of anticipated disruptions, like a few minutes here, half hour there, varying, or?
If I were them, I'd take it down for one fell swoop, but I guess I didn't ask them that question about how they do their business.
Yeah, I mean, if we
Well-
could warn people, it could be a half a day or something, I mean.
Well, from what I understand, they drain the tank. They
Right.
ride down in it, do the inspection.
We're not getting a float down.
No?
No, we had talked about that when we decided earlier which way to go. That's a specific type.
Yeah.
But to do the wash down, they still need to evacuate the tank.
Yeah. And then the system will run on pumps
Right,
correct?
Right.
until the
Until
inspection,
they-
whatever is done. Then the pumps will turn back, fill up the elevated storage, and then be back to business.
So it'll mostly depend on usage, as long as everybody doesn't turn their water on at once, we can probably keep up to a degree.
Technically, there should be no interruption. The pump should turn on. Well, there can be if a pump
Yeah.
fails,
That's
the
what I mean,
elevated
like-
tank's empty.
We're not looking at something, if it's a few minutes here, a few minutes there.
Well, and honestly, midday, you figure most of your water usage is at the beginning or the end of the day.
Yeah.
Most people take showers in the morning or showers in the evening.
That's
In the middle of the day, most people are gone at work.
It's always nice though to inform people to have some,
Expectation.
Right.
well, and to have maybe water filled up into containers if they want, just in case there's no water, so. Just how are you gonna do that though? I mean, are you going to put something out to the people that this is gonna happen on this day and
Well, it's,
be,
it says it takes less than a week, so is it a couple days, or?
They may get it done in a day. I hate to put that into things because all it does is create expectation.
Yeah, okay.
But if they get a good long day and they might be done in a day.
Okay.
But they maintain some pumping and pressures into the city system.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So could be hicked up with loss of power, but, there might be some different pressure in your house than you're used to, a short period of time, but
And less people use it during that
Larry,
time,
isn't that right?
the better it would be for anybody that does.
That's right.
The bottom.
I do have a call in
Or instructed.
on the question, have not specifically heard back
One full
yet.
workday.
Yeah, that was included in the quote originally.
So it should be done in a single day.
Should be. No expectations though.
Right.
I would expect we shouldn't have any hiccups with it. BUHL's fed from power, for electricity from 2 different directions. We'd have to lose both sides. Pumps would have to go down. Our city crew is amazing at what they do. I don't see how we could have any
They have
issues.
had some power issues lately, though.
We're getting it from 3 directions today.
And I know we saw this proposal before, so I probably should have asked this before, I just don't remember. It says on number 9, price doesn't include containment testing or off-site disposal of sediment or debris from the tank. Are they just planning to pump the sediment, debris, and excess water just into the pit, or is there anything we should watch for?
I think there'll be,
Well,
what's in there, a shovel full of
Yeah.
sand or something? I'm sure Trent will handle that.
Send it up the hill and dump it and
Yeah.
use it for something else.
I mean, we're drinking that water currently, so it can't be that bad.
It can't be that bad.
Okay.
Or we got more in your hot water heater at home.
Oh, yeah. Excellent.
It's my hot debris heater.
Yeah, hot debris heater.
We'll finally find the condition of our beloved water tower. All right, moving on. Now we had that amendment, or wait, we're on G, sorry.
We're on G. We did have the amendment for the,
The street closure.
right.
H1.
Yeah, it's H. We're on G. Apologies.
Well,
Okay.
it would make some sense. Just remember, we've got H1 to take care of after G. We may spend some time on G.
That's where my question was. H1 comes before H, or the other way around.
I think we usually do 1 before H.
Other way around, I would say.
H and then H1.
H and then H1.
H and then H1, correct? Okay. All right, item G, presentation of Buhl 2024 Strategic Initiatives Plan. I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Jeffries. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Carter. Okay, folks, both staff and leadership continues to work diligently in identifying and aligning activities and initiatives designed and intended to improve and enhance the city of Buhl and the quality of life it can provide and continue to provide for its residents, visitors, guests, shareholders, stakeholders, and investors into the near and long-term future. So staff has compiled several concepts and proposed initiatives into a strategic initiatives plan, which it desires and I desire and propose to utilize as a model and collateral marketing material, as we'll get into, to the general public and to interested parties alike. So at this time, I'd like to introduce the Buhl Big Project 24. Big being an acronym for the blueprint for infrastructure improvements and gains. Taking everything that we've done over the year and kind of summarizing it, this strategic initiative has been broken down into 5 major elements. 1, public utilities infrastructure. 2, housing and residential amenities. 3, business and economic development, retention and growth. 4, roadways and thoroughfares. And 5, recreational improvements, opportunities, and initiatives. I will give a short presentation of this, and I have no visual aid to add to what we have. We've done a PowerPoint, but we don't have a good visual projection system to put on the wall or on the screen here in City Hall. So I've handed out the initiative to everybody in the room, and we'll talk through it. But there are no visuals for the public who may be joining us for this. Okay. So I guess the reason this all came about was we've had some successes here, and it looks like we're positioned to have potentially further successes for the future. And now is as good a time as any to put all the eggs in one basket, I guess, so to speak. The point of this initiative is to let everybody know that we have been thinking, we are thinking, we have been working, we are working, and we have a collective body of initiatives we'd like to do that all kind of dovetail into each other, and all for, again, to increase the quality of life, or for sure to maintain the quality of life in the city. So we have been blessed with the opportunity to present our needs case to several groups that may be able to provide some kind of funding to help us achieve some of these goals. So part of this plan is intended to kind of summarize all that, to put it into, again, one basket. There's a number of elements in here. They're independent, but they're related. So what I would like to do is very high level highlight some of the major concepts here, leave this for council to start to digest, and then also mention that later this week, Mayor Carter and myself will be, and Engineer Jamnik will be appearing before the Minnesota Senate Capital Improvements Committee, Capital Investments Committee, and would like to utilize this as information for the Senate Capital Investment Committee for potential consideration of funding of our infrastructure projects. We've done a great amount of infrastructure work, but there's plenty that remains to be done, and they're broken up between industrial uses, business uses, residential uses, civic uses, recreational uses, et cetera, et cetera. So the request and the desire is to approach the state, initially the state Senate Capital Investments Committee with this big picture summary, okay? So again, 5 major avenues of initiative.
Mr. Jeffries,
Sir.
can I stop you 1 second? Right there? Real quick. Denise, starting with you. Like, what's the most important thing moving forward with Buhl? Like, if you could do one thing, develop residential lots, commercial stuff.
I would say commercial at this
Okay.
point.
All right.
Yeah, that would.
Renee,
Bring business to town.
business. Randy, most important thing Buhl needs right now?
Sorry, hard to say on the spot.
Besides water park, I get it.
Oh, I thought we were bringing the state fair up here.
No Disney World. Most beneficial thing we could do for Buhl right now.
Yeah, I don't have an on-the-spot answer,
All
sorry.
right. All right. Thank you, guys. Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. That's why
Sorry to put you guys on the spot. Sorry.
there's absolutely no priority.
It was good.
Sorry.
There's absolutely no priority here between A, B, C, D, and E. They're all equal. It's just the way they landed. Alrighty. I'll try to address Mayor Carter's comment here in just a piece. But if I can give the overview of it all, the introduction, the whole strategy of this plan as I've seen it is a comprehensive strategic vision for positioning the city of Buhl to take advantage of its resources, natural and otherwise, to adequately and capably serve its residents, visitors, shareholders, stakeholders, and investors from the present through 2040 and beyond. So we're kind of starting to look down the road decades. One of the major elements identified, which we've been working on in the past year and past, element 1 is public utilities infrastructure. And the initiatives underneath each of these categories, again, are not in any real priority order. They're all very important. Anyway, the infrastructure, the public utilities infrastructure piece would include upgrading domestic water storage facilities, upgrading the distribution system for growth and expansion, installing infrastructure into new areas, be them business-related or commercial-related areas, or residential areas. And keeping an eye on our interface between our system and our wastewater treatment plant in Chisholm to make sure we can get what we need there when we need to get it there. Element number 2 would be housing and residential amenities, which may or may not include a new residential development, analysis of the existing and available residential housing stock, potentially conducting a housing study, continuing to work with North St. Louis County Habitat for Humanity to develop their residential campus around our nearby area here, establishing of a youth center in Buhl, and ongoing evaluation of existing lands and properties and any improvements that they may need. Attached to that section is a rendition of a potential residential expansion out to the east of the existing school, north of Highway 169, south of Highway 125. This is the latest iteration of work with the city engineer and staff, and I guess the quick highlights we see at this point for future considerations are that this residential area would be primarily served for workforce housing. Workforce housing is defined as between 80 and 120% of the median income in your area. So I'm not going to throw a number on that right now, but I will say that workforce housing remains the biggest question mark and the biggest need in our area. Above and beyond market rate housing, which would be your developments for any personal home or property someone would individually wish to develop. So if there is a priority when we look residentially, I would say workforce housing would be the greatest return on that initiative. This rendering you have, just wanted to point out, there's several park areas which have been identified, which would definitely, in my opinion, need to be an included portion of a residential development. And we would propose to get rid of the connection between Highway 169 and Pennsylvania Avenue, especially where it would curve by the bank in town. That would hopefully be replaced by the north-south arterial road that we previously started to talk about with St. Louis County. Element number 3 in the overall strategic initiative would be business and economic development, retention and growth. Items under that category would include redesign and development of now what I'm calling the Buhl Business Block, the former South Industrial Park, expansion of the campground, examination of our zoning ordinances and other land use ordinances to consider whether or not we want to consider modifying them to better support economic development, and evaluation and implementation improvement strategies for Whiteside Industrial Park. Attached in this section, you also will have a rendering, which I think is out of order and shows up in section 4. It looks like this. But the latest rendering from the city engineer and ourselves regarding a redesign and development of the Buhl Business Block. Highlights on that include we've tried to minimize the number of interior roads while maximizing the service to any property on that development. It also includes extending what we will call a frontage road all the way across the properties, parallel Highway 169, and a proposal to continue that road to the southwest and try to hook that up with Highway 169 around where the present Forest Street Highway 169 intersection is by the shortstop. Going to the south, there is a trail in that way, it's kind of got a little hill there, but if we can access the business park from there, we have another piece of land that Buhl holds that may or may not be put into service for commercial and business development. After that time, this connection would serve them. This connection would not disrupt and create any other Highway 169 connections, and would also, to a degree, eliminate any turn lane eastward from where the shortstop is to service the business park. We also, on the east side, took a look at Morse Road and decided we would not connect Morse Road to any of the business park other than what is there right now. What is there right now is what's called Industrial Park Road South, which leads up to the existing ODC facility, and it also connects up to where Frito-Lay has their storage and distribution center near the intersection of Morse Road and 169. We would not add any other entrances or exits from Morse Road. On your pictures, you see delineated wetlands which have been indicated in red. We would propose to, as much as possible, leave those wetlands in as natural a fashion as possible. In many cases, they do impact or encroach on some individual parcels of land, but those individual parcels have been, at this point anyway, laid out to where it would not hopefully intrude upon any structures that might be proposed for whatever the use of that business parcel would be. Mayor Carter asked the question, what would be the very first thing you'd do? Most said commercial / business. Building out this park would probably be the best return for that. We've kind of included that. We've included that work we've done before. We've called it looping in the utilities. Well, we've redesigned this now to have more sites, to attract more business-oriented, be it retail or be it service-oriented, and away from these bigger parcels, which were initially conceived as more manufacturing, warehousing, or industrial-type parcels. Some of the infrastructure needs we have absolutely have to be developed in this business park expansion. We may have some money available now from earlier bonding appropriation for a portion of this work, but likely not for all of the work, which is where some of this big picture strategy comes into place when we go looking for more funding opportunities. Okay? So the industrial part, the business part, hopefully we can get into the habit of maybe only referring to industrial park as the Whiteside facility for obvious reasons. The size of the buildings, the type of roads, the type of work and business which happens out there. And this becomes more of a business park or a business block. Moving on to item number 4 of the major elements of this project, that would be roadways and thoroughfares. Highlights in there include facilitating the Highway 169 modifications and access improvements, which MnDOT is going to be doing through 2026. Another would be to evaluate in-city speed controls and traffic management improvement options as to whether or not there would be any change to any of the intersections in the city, or whether any other sort of traffic control devices or appurtenances were to be selected to be installed. To also evaluate and participate in any citywide county finance road improvements. We have a number of roads in town which are county roads. Some have been improved recently, some have not. But there is always the relationship between the maintenance of those roads. Whose is it? Is it the city's? Is it the county's? Or if the city does something on behalf of for the county, is there some kind of, for lack of a better word, credit that can be returned from the city helping out the county in that regard? That ties into the design and construction of the north-south-east side arterial roadway. That would be the road that we started to discuss having as a county state aid highway with the county. Our next meeting will likely be in October with both St. Louis County and MnDOT. That also then ties into this Buhl business block, access and through complex roadways. Again, my biggest highlight there is we tried to minimize internal roadways by maximizing the exposure in the service area to all of the properties there. And then finally, other than looking at Whiteside Industrial Park for improvements, which will be along with BETA, the Buhl Economic Development Authority, finally to provide any necessary infrastructure to service roadway improvements as is necessary. We don't know what those really are right now. They come up bits and pieces. Part of what Mr. Jamnik talked about in terms of our Roberts Street and Seville Avenue, etc. work that we're lumping into the Damien too are examples of these kinds of infrastructure servicing that may come up in the future. So roadways and thoroughfares, again, another big ticket item that we'll be looking for financial assistance for. And then finally, element number 5, recreational improvements, opportunities, and initiatives, including, with no particular order, expanding the campground with more sites, expanding the recreational trail system in and around the west side of town, improving our fishing docks and boat launch landing, and the trails amenities serving each, which may include some control, if not signage and more for those trails like we spoke about at last city council meeting. Developing or constructing a new ball field, baseball style field. And then having an ongoing program to evaluate the present recreational facilities and any new recreational facilities which are contemplated. That's the 5 elements, and I like Walt Disney, so I threw a quote in from Walt, and it says, "The way to get started is to quit talking and to begin doing." Once you're doing, you can always kind of put the ratchet back on and slow down to a talking phase again. After that, I put a projected timeline in front of you. I'm not going to go into detail on that. Let's just say that these 5 elements to me kind of lay out not too badly in 5 phases. I actually do invite feedback from the council, not now, but after you've had a chance to absorb and digest this a little bit, to look at the timeline. Right now it's a 5-phase project, beginning at the end of this year and moving into the next 5 years. So there are activities for the next 5 years that have been identified. And then, of course, folks, there have been costs associated with those activities. So following the projected timeline sheet is a projected project costs table. That table along the top, reading left to right, includes each of the 5 major project elements, and reading up and down on the left side includes each of the 5 phases. And a projected project cost element for each of the phases, for each of the components, leading to what engineer and ourselves at the moment feel might be reasonable cost figures to work with. Those figures are very loose and very preliminary at this time, and they are also subject to comment from you all. So I'm not even going to mention any figures, except to say that there are costs involved with each of the 5 elements of this strategic initiative. The highest identified cost element at this point being housing and residential, and the lowest anticipated being recreational improvements and/or business and economic development improvements. That business and economic development improvement number is based on the fact that some of the work is actually related to other project elements like public utilities infrastructure, and also related to the fact that part of the work is kind of already done. Anyway, I don't want to mention any numbers except let you folks digest them and come back with any reaction to it. So summarizing everything, this is a attempt to come up with a strategic initiative for Buhl to say this is what we'd like to do in the next number of years to position the city to remain a jewel on the Iron Range for the next few decades. And to be able to refer back to one document for what the overall strategy might be. I have shared this with the city engineer, and I'd like to invite Mr. Jamnik, if he wishes, if he has any first reactions to this.
Well, I think you did an excellent job there, Tony, and it's fun. It's going to be a fun exercise over the next 4 or 5 years. That's part of it too. So. And we got position to get, partnerships going, like what you said, the state, local agencies, state agencies, and federal agencies to implement these things. And we're looking for grant money. We've been asking federal level appropriations over the last couple of years. And like most other communities, we get thanks but no thanks, but we'll keep trying. And that's what happens at the state level too, you just keep going. Once you get your foot in the door, you got a little bit better chance to keep going with those programs, so. And of course, we got the local, we're CDBG eligible, plus, IIIIB's always been a good supporter for these type of projects too.
So I gave a good amount of consideration into the whole general concept of applying on a project-by-project specific basis. And I'll just explain that it seemed to me at this point for the city, the big picture, it might be time to let that come out and be known rather than pick one over here and pick one over there and try to explain that all to outside agencies, outside organizations, those we're trying to partner with, as Engineer Jamnik said. That's the best I can do with an explanation to say that I did look at piece by piece project approach and thought, let's roll out a comprehensive strategy and see how that is, how you all feel about it. So that's what I have for that.
Can I ask a question? Just percentage-wise, 30%, 40%, 20%, whatever. If you were to say the goal and the likely numbers for how much of this we would cover in grants, how much would be bonds, and how much would be, say, utilities or levies, what would you say would be a rough number for those three? Like I said, goal or maybe more likely?
I'd say that's an impossible question to answer. But I will say this, that as you folks are getting to know me better, the goal here would be to leverage just as much funding as possible from outside sources. I do believe you have to pay something for that, but you don't necessarily have to pay in money. So let me, for example, suggest that if the community, if the city is in a good position to help out a need the area has, that other places in the area can't do as well for one reason or another, that being a good community partner has value. I can't put a number on it, but has value and may be part of leveraging the opportunity to get funding. Okay. The last place that Buhl can create funding is from itself. We know this. It costs the same amount of money to build a mile of road in Minneapolis as it does in Buhl. But a large city can absorb those costs better than a small one like Buhl. So the only intelligent approach in my mind is to try to leverage non-monetary assets we may have in order to maximize monetary help and assistance from other places. Percentage-wise, Brandy, Commissioner Towner, I can't. However, again, I think I can suggest that the goal here is not to just find a way for Buhl to get money to spend it. Not at all. That's the last. The levy, the water and utility rates, those have to be set for what we need them for now, primarily. Whether or not they could ever sustain something else, that's a case-by-case specific basis when we come up with hard costs, hard needs, and what's going to pay them back. On the other hand, relationships which can help out others, for instance, the county road proposal. It appears to myself and others that the county might get as much or more out of that road as a benefit as the city would. Therefore, it would make great sense to partner up for that sort of a project. How much that can happen in all these elements, I can't say.
My first initial thoughts are, we need to get a projector because this is costing us money. All that ink. Second of all, I just want to touch on a few things here.
I only made 4 copies.
Just to clear my mind. Well, how much ink's expensive? I buy it at home. I mean, we could probably have a projector for 4 copies. Anyway, a couple of things people have to understand, and I want the council to understand 100%. If you already know this, disregard what I'm going to say. If we put a foot of sewer line in the ground and we take a loan out for that foot of sewer line, that comes out of our enterprise fund for our sewer. That enterprise fund has to pay the loan on that sewer line. If we put 1 foot of water line in, and that's loaned money, that water fund has to pay that loan back. Any infrastructure put in, money's not free no matter what. I mean, even grant dollars we pay for back in state taxes that we pay at the gas pump or whatever. But when any sort of project council approves and moves forward on, it in one way or another will be a burden on the people who live here. Whether it's through utility rates having to go up because we installed 3/4 of a mile of plumbing in a new development, or we have to raise the levy because the city had to flip the bill for dirt work on one of the roads. I mean, any motion moving forward on any development of anything costs the people who live here. The biggest thing I want the council to think about is what will benefit the people in this community first. If this council moves forward on something, is it going to have a positive impact on the people who live here already? You know, we're here, we were elected by everybody to represent them, to look out for their best interests. Yes, we should look forward. We should look way forward. I mean, Tony's right. We should be looking way into the future and planning accordingly to be successful as we have. But we have to be detail-oriented. We have to pay attention to all of it and not be reckless. We see reckless spending by communities all over the Iron Range. We see these big extravagant city buildings going up. We see developments going in, sitting empty a lot of places. Buhl has been and will continue to be an example financially and as a community. I mean, this town is awesome. And when we start looking at things like this as a whole, it's real easy to put a town into debt where it's a negative impact on the community. The levy has to be raised, utility rates have to go up, all because we punched in a development or, we spent X amount of dollars on something. It's very easy to go the other direction. So I just want the council to make sure if anybody has questions, ask them. Because Thursday, me and Tony are gonna go sit in front of senators and pitch, here's what Buhl's looking at. Maybe not exactly to these exact details, this is early on. We may not want to spend $3 million on a residential development or whatever, but when I go sit in that room, what I'm going to be asking from them is what this council wants, what the people of this community want. It's not going to be something on a piece of paper. It's going to be, if I'm in that room speaking for Buhl, I want all of your backing. I want you guys, not physically, but to be there with me, as well as the whole community. So, sorry for the long spiel, but I had to get that off my chest. With that being said, back to the priorities of this town. Thoughts from the council?
Again, businesses bring bucks.
Right. That being said, that's a long ways out on this timeline, any way you slice it. I mean, there's a development across from my house that doesn't look like a development, and that's been how many years in the making? It looks
The
like,
last one's not even
right.
complete.
That's the only concern.
So either
And I
way you
would-
go, because if you do another residential, it could be, again, a long way out. Either way
Right.
you go, it's,
Yeah,
Right.
now, with that, think.
Right.
All that, the money's, well, bad example, but any money you loan for those utilities, that comes out of our enterprise funds for repayment. And that affects our utility rates, which everybody in town, I'm sure, can say that our utility rates have been an issue. Council said they're not going up. We go home, look at our bill, they're going up. What the hell's going on,
Well,
right?
gas pumps. When you look at the gas pumps, it did the same thing. I mean, that's, some things just aren't in your control.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm happy to finally see it put in this format.
Oh, yes.
We
Yeah.
really needed
I-
that.
Yep.
Agreed.
And to be able to present, you get in front of these committees and you have to present information, the more organized, the more it looks like you're on top of things.
Yeah.
Having like 100,000-foot view of it as a big, what Buhl's gonna be like 40 years from now, and having actual details and have it laid out in a timeline, I mean, that's great for selling it.
And it must have taken a lot of time to develop this.
And just looking at this, I was thinking about like the development right next to me. Nobody's moving in there because there's not a road by there. I mean, there's no roads. I mean, the guy invests in roadways and gets at least an established footprint, like we were looking at earlier. Then you got opportunity. Then people are driving by, looking at it. Then, I mean, there's potential there.
I know you want us to come back to you with
that's-
more comments, questions, and things like that, but I guess just initially, I think the time frame on certain things might be the only thing I'd.
Yeah.
Certainly understand.
Yeah, that's
Because
that's
buttoning
kind
up,
of
like
It seems
things they're
aggressive,
mentioning
but-
before we start other
Right.
ones,
But I
or,
think it's just
but again, I like that we
Goal.
finally have it
Well, if you put in the
collaborative. they're
Right, it's
consolidated.
the timeline.
And then you total up all this, which is, this is just all,
Well, you gotta figure that's year by year. It's
Do you think there's any
Right.
25.
overlap
Well, this
between
is
some of
supposed to be
this
here.
26. I mean,
that's on this?
that's a lot for
I'm sure there's overlap.
2 years from now.
On
Yeah.
this, what's
know what I
already in
mean?
the
Yeah.
works.
So those are just
what
like
we had approved.
goals.
Do you, if I come
Right.
back later?
yeah, but we walk,
Absolutely.
if we walk in the room
Yeah.
and we say,
Because I don't want to just
we're
say,
looking at
on top of
Right.
everything.
$5 million.
You gotta be, yeah, you gotta be committed. You gotta be like all in. I know what you're saying.
and somebody authors the bill, it goes to vote and it's approved.
You know,
Field's got $5 million, so that's how it works.
but I can come back and ask that.
I want to
Another
just,
time.
I want to mention that as we potentially talk about further funding opportunity, questions are going to come up as to whether or not we've received funding for said opportunity. And that's why I put out different elements to be able to say, no, this has not been funded in any way yet. And yeah, that may dovetail with some other things that are on here. I think it might be more difficult to say, yeah, we've got funding for this, but now we've got funding for this, but now we want to make it this. That's a different ballgame. To partially describe thinking into the sequencing of the timeline, which absolutely is up for grabs, can always be modified.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right. To me, I just, to me, the feedback from presenting this to others is what's going to be very important to maybe even say, do we even keep it, or do we put it on the shelf, or do we keep it, do we keep using it as a guidance document type of thing? I don't have that answer until we get some feedback.
Or do we expand it from phase 1 through 5 years, to phase 1 through 7? Or,
Yeah,
Well, I think we're all in agreement on what's priority, first and foremost, correct? The reason I asked the question.
And that's kind of the thing too. Business is a priority, but you gotta have roadways into it, so you almost gotta prioritize that over the business. You gotta have the road in front of it before you got anybody even looking at the property.
Which is same like the housing.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Another thing to keep in mind though, in the residential department, there's a need for housing in the area. There's funding available for it. It's on the table. Does it benefit you and your neighbor as a citizen of this community to put in more residential developments? Maybe not. It benefits the area as a whole. Keeps people moving forward instead of being one of those communities that just dries up and disappears. Obviously, we want a Taco Bell and everything out on the highway like everybody else does. But at the same time, the residential, Buell's in a good place to move forward on responsibly adding residential development to town. There's been some hiccups in the past, but I think that can be overcome. Right? Everybody?
Right.
Okay.
The more houses you bring in too, the more tax money you have coming in. So
You do.
Either one, it was a tough question you asked, which was more
It is.
important.
But if you actually compare the two, one commercial development can generate more tax revenue than 10 residential homes.
well, if your question is, what is your priority for Buell? I mean, it could be just as high a priority for us to preserve something as to add something, so.
True.
There's a lot-
It was
there's a
just
lot.
spur of the moment. I just
Yeah.
tried to throw that out there before we got way into it, just to hear,
Yeah.
just to have thought.
Yeah, and I'll add this
Input.
on the timeline thing, the recreational side of things, that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. That's easier to do, quicker to do, and somewhat
Less expensive.
less expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
And things like that we can work on throughout.
But for tourism dollars to really benefit the town, you have to have businesses to be able
here.
to spend it on.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
We need a city vending machine. City vending machines,
And-
fuel water.
And
Put a dollar in and
Yes.
fill up your water bottle.
You wanna
I
work
can
off
tell you
the
all have
way
picked up on this already. It's not easy trying to determine which of these is more important than any other and which one should come ahead of any other. There's,
Well, priorities change with needs.
and they change regularly too.
Right.
So, yeah.
Speaking of doing any residential developments responsibly, I mean, just the grand scheme of this, I would say don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad thing, but it's aggressive. A 5-year timeline for all of these things.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at too.
And again, that's not a bad thing, but after watching the presentations, both the ones you guys gave, and I watched a few other ones while I was watching those meetings, especially in the one, there was a certain person that seemed to beat up on people that, at least she had implied that it looked like they were biting off more than they could chew. Is that something that might hurt us if we present a 5-year time frame for all this, or would we benefit from presenting it as a 5 to 10 year?
Or just a progressive. Doesn't have to. I know it's nice to have hard numbers on it, but do you have to have? I suppose you almost do have to have a yearly, otherwise you don't.
Well, the more organized it is,
Right,
the easier
right.
it is to sell.
Right. There's that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 5 years. I do think that's a bit.
Well, and like he mentioned, this can change as we go or
Right.
as we decide the needs, but as far as the presentation that you guys are supposed to give in 2 days.
Well,
Totally go with it. Yeah.
I want to remind everybody that if you do get bonding dollars, you gotta spend them in 4 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
right, but plenty of this.
If you get bonding dollars and plans change, it's not something the community is behind. Can you give bonding dollars back?
I believe you sure can.
Would that hurt us in the future? Would they say, well, you guys felt...
I guess you're asking me for kind of an opinion here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I
And I'll
guess
put
it
it this
depends
way,
on their-
if I'm on the committee,
Yeah.
I'm impressed with an applicant that's got a long-term vision and has their thoughts looking in that direction.
And I guess as far as somebody holding it against us, it's only as far as their memory goes back unless they really research what we've done in the past.
I think in my mind, being responsible financially in any of this moving forward is key. I mean, like I said, if we pound in a half mile of water line, city's on the hook for $750,000. That's as a low interest loan or such. That comes out of the enterprise fund, and if it can't sustain that right now, rates have to go up. And that's just the water and sewer. Tony, is there funding, or John, you may be able to answer this. Is there funding to secure for when you put a new development in for the dirt work for roads and the paving and curb and gutter?
Be infrastructure.
Through the IRRB in the state of Minnesota,
Is that typically,
they've been talking about that, there's money at the state level.
And the Holmes grant from St. Louis County that I had spoke of last meeting and such,
Yeah.
that includes it. Infrastructure on new residential development is an eligible cost on the county level also.
Yes.
So we've taken that into consideration also. I mean, like John said, we're looking at federal, state, local, and county potential, all geared toward residential related initiatives. So it kind of seems like maybe we should be taking a hard look at that.
we should definitely be looking at residential. I mean, there's a need for it. People love living here, but we want to be definitely responsible with that. Because that's the one, we develop commercial stuff and market it correctly and get businesses in, that's going to be a benefit to the people who live here now. We build a residential development. I'm still trying to find the angle there,
But if we start filling...
but
those homes or the ones we currently still need to fill.
Yes.
It also encourages more businesses in town, so.
It does. It does. So. Thoughts, Denise?
Here you go picking me again.
Hey. You don't have to go sit in the room on Thursday, so.
Speaking of that, do you need council approval to send you guys to meetings? I think we've done it for another one, but do we need to approve you guys presenting to the committee? So if
I
If
would
there's
say
money
no.
involved, yes.
well,
If
travel
we're spending
expenses-
money,
Yeah,
yeah, we're not.
No, is there like expenses and stuff?
Oh, are you presenting through,
It's in Virginia.
It's in Virginia.
No,
Oh,
well,
okay.
then, no.
perfect,
Yeah,
it's way better.
yeah, no, we're not
Better
asking,
drive,
I'm not
better-
asking for any expenditure.
Okay.
Better venue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You asked this
Thoughts,
question.
Denise?
I know, you asked this question before and I kind of wavering now because there's just importance of both.
There is.
And you need the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart, whatever way you want to look
Right.
at it and I don't know. This, to me, I'll still say it's aggressive, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Go for it. I don't.
I guess me thinking on it, probably roads and thoroughfares would have to be
That's-
further up the chain because you like I said, you gotta have
Yeah.
roads to drive on. You gotta have, I would put that before, because with that, then you got businesses looking at it. And then any of your recreational improvements after that are gonna benefit your businesses.
And maybe you
I
can
mean-
fit a recreational thing in there if you have to. I
Right.
mean, it's not a high priority, but if we can fit it into the process, like somewhere in here, like you kind of
It's just,
have it in.
for me, I'm just personally, I've been working driving through Floodwood every day. And that population of the town is 500 people. And they're half our size and they got 3 times the business or more.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's just-
Nashwauk too.
It's just amazing. Well, Nashwauk is the same size as us and they got 10 times the business.
I know.
And we're right on the side of the road.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's potential here for days.
Huge. Tony, I have a question. These rough numbers you threw here, under housing and residential, is that for the whole map?
Yeah,
And that must be, see, that's a parking lot for the park. Gotcha.
I think this is a
Those 3 parks.
multi-person housing unit.
Oh, that is? Oh, I just seen a parking lot. I didn't know what it was
Various
for.
types of parks.
Yeah,
I
the park right
assume.
there across from, I don't think
they're
that's gonna
green
fly.
I
space.
hate to have swing sets
Probably
over
not.
here, slides over here.
That's a housing
That's
development?
exactly.
Not just,
Yeah, I think
there's
that's
like
what it's supposed to
walking
be.
parks.
It's not like set in stone, but that's just
Like a little bridge with you can
That's
make
Like I said,
this.
those would be.
Pretty rugged park right there.
Well,
Different.
They're not
Whatever.
necessarily have to be
It's
swings and
50-foot
slides.
elevation.
No, I know, but
Oh,
we wouldn't have
That-
all
Parks
would be like
individual
this.
parks standing on their own.
that question might be answered through a housing study, some of the work, if we have a housing study done.
Okay.
That's all sloped.
That's what would be.
you know what's awesome? The big pile of dirt that's right here. That you can't build on.
Flatten it out.
Seems to happen a lot. Okay. So,
This is gonna be huge.
With houses come a daycare
there.
center, with the
Well-
daycare center.
Oh, we know.
then-
Definitely need
Oh, yeah.
a daycare
You know,
center. That is like
Well,
a
and
huge
daycare
need.
centers is another thing that there's a lot of funding out there for.
Right, my daughter
because
says
it's huge
she's up
need.
in Babbitt. There is no
There
daycare
isn't-
up in
there's-
Babbitt at all.
But if you have all these new families moving into town, that would be a good start to.
yeah, but on the other hand, I've personally had inquiries about locations for small businesses like that. Buhl doesn't have any. There is no locations for like a daycare or like mental health services or any stuff like that. We don't have anything to offer.
Commercial property isn't there, you're saying?
Yeah, there's nothing.
Well, maybe we'll have to start looking at rezoning so people can start businesses in spots.
Well, that's
That was on
a
our,
phase.
Right, right,
one of our
right.
phases.
Because I think that right there, being where it is, you could do something with that.
this is gonna have to remain open for heavy haulage, is all I got to say.
Right.
So that'll be access off the highway to the industrial park.
Yep.
So that needs to remain.
No, but I mean, rezoning,
Oh, I see.
commercial, because that's really.
Ah. Possibilities are endless.
It's a thought.
So, I would like to ask the council for their blessing to go on Thursday, myself and Mr. Jeffries, to go present this to the committee for the Senate.
Mayor Carter, perhaps you should mention we've also been invited by the House 3 weeks later.
We have. So we have an opportunity, and we didn't seek this out, we were invited.
Excellent.
And we don't really know if it was Costin Group maybe said something, or Dave's Lizard said something, or Rob Farnsworth. We don't know.
Or if it was ourselves.
Or if it's the previous work we've done. So we got an invite to the Senate and the House. And they'll both be in Virginia, correct?
Correct.
So we have an opportunity to present for funding for projects Buell has. Definitely an opportunity we want to take, but we also want to take responsibly. In the best interest of the people.
Well, I know Denise isn't gonna wanna answer you first, so.
I just want you guys' blessing. I mean, me and Tony are I'm not going to present this stuff unless everybody's okay with it.
I don't see where
Totally following.
we wouldn't benefit from presenting this. I know we'll probably tweak things along the way, and I don't think that those people would be in the position they are if they didn't understand that these kind of plans have tweaks along the way.
Right.
And these kind of things are always a work in progress, being molded as we work.
And a couple of the concerns that we have as far as like filling those other 2 residential developments, that's not really something we're requesting their help with, so it
Not at
doesn't
all.
need to be included in this plan. But as long as we've made note that that needs to be a priority before we can afford to do some of this.
Well, I think that can be taken care of easily with a little bit of marketing.
Well, even I think once the curb and gutter and roads go in, it's gonna be way more attractive than what it looks like right now. It
Yeah.
looks horrible right now, so I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to start.
Well, if we're not realistic. But I mean, as far as presenting this, I think we should.
I agree.
I agree. You
I
know, maybe
agree.
this is a vision that we've never really had for the city before. It sounds aggressive, but maybe we needed to look at a vision like this.
Yeah.
was
We have
exciting.
vision to
We're
talk
behind.
about all these
I mean,
pieces.
we are.
You don't have to, you don't have to go to, you can throw a dart at the map and pretty much everybody's got more business than we got.
Well, yeah, that's why I brought up Nashwauk. You look at Nashwauk, obviously they've done a lot of work with, their commercial aspect. I mean, Buell's been sitting, we haven't pushed for any of that. And real estate, people like demand to live here. It's crazy. Like if you watch like Realtor.com, there's only like 1 or 2 houses ever for sale here. And
Not for long.
Right, not for long,
they
yeah.
buy them up real quick. There's a demand to live here.
Yeah.
And we should definitely help people with that. All right, so you guys
Go do a good job.
have your blessing.
Yeah,
I'll do my
absolutely.
best. I'll do my best.
If you come
for
back
it.
with a blank check.
I can't guarantee anything. All right,
Don't forget the case of Buell water.
Mr. Jeffries,
Ah,
are we allowed to bring a case of our fine water with us?
I thought about it. If you wish, that'd be up to you.
No, we'll have to talk about it. Or is that considered,
Bribery.
I don't know, it's just water.
You're helping a friend out, you're helping him
Plus they
hydrate.
remember, they'll remember. It says Buell.
Oh, yeah,
Leave it
exactly.
out in the hallway.
With a free sign on it. Help yourself.
All right. Mr. Jeffries, thank you.
Very good job.
Obviously, you've probably put more time into any of that than anybody else, and we appreciate it. Okay. We're going on Thursday. Let's move on to item H. Wait a second, I got H is other business.
Yep.
H1. The Hideaway has a street closing request, September 9th, 2023. They're scheduled for the first annual Monica Memorial Street Dance on Saturday, September 9th, 2023. The event will be held on State Street on the 200 block, which fronts the Hideaway. They've requested a portion of that block of State Street from Jones Avenue to 213 State Street, closed from noon to midnight. Obviously, I don't know if anybody else knows Monica. Monica was a very important member of our community. And her loss hurt our community big time. This is going to be an annual thing, it sounds like. Wonderful. We have a motion that the city grant the request to the Hideaway to close that portion of State Street from Jones Avenue to 213 State Street from noon to midnight on September 9th, 2023, and to assist with traffic control by allowing the use of barricades.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. You have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. That's awesome. Good to hear. September 9th.
So, Mr. Jeffries, where are we on budget-wise for police coverage for something like this? Do we have enough in the budget? Because I know they're not asking for police coverage, but I know we have to have it to make sure they're checking this area out once in a while, and it's a street dance, and with a street dance brings alcohol on the streets, and we've had to, I know like the all-class reunion, we had to require police coverage. I would imagine this would too. Is this gonna require extra coverage in Buhl, and do we have it in our budget? It's a legit question.
Counselor Keeley, this came to the Hideaway's attention today, came to our attention this afternoon. Definitely have not had time to reach out to our police force to determine if there be a requirement for additional, more than normal services or not. I apologize, I don't know if they would have to do anything above and beyond what they do now.
I do know that in other street dances, and I do know like in Chisholm, because they are the same cops, they are required to have extra cops on for events like this. Now, whether that's just how Chisholm handles it, I know we had to have them for the all class.
What's our agreement with it? Because I haven't noticed any huge spikes when we approve the expenses, any huge spikes in the police.
Have we
monthly?
ever asked
Like
them for extra
Yeah.
police coverage other than the all class? And
I mean, how do we?
And do you? I mean,
Does our
should that not be
agreement-
part of a street dance? I mean,
Yeah.
just for,
Well, unless it's not technically a street dance. I mean, it was celebrations last weekend. It was private, but the street was blocked off. Does that go on the person that's putting on?
that would be up to the city of Buhl and their policy on closing a street.
What's our agreement with CPD? I mean, does it
That I
include
don't know.
like a set number of hours that we pay for, or does the amount we pay say, certain events may arise where we require more coverage at no
I think
extra
it's just a
cost?
set number, isn't it, for the Chisholm police?
Because that
They have to
average
do a
hours,
set number of average hours per week?
it varies slightly every time we get the
Yeah, it
monthly
does.
report. So, but like I said, I don't think I've seen a huge spike.
I mean, nobody wants to see a cop hanging around, but again, this is an event that probably requires anytime you have a street dance. And again, I hate to keep using Chisholm, but I know that they do require cops on duty and walking the,
Yeah, but I just mean, I don't know for sure. It's a good question to ask maybe is it something we would have to budget for? Would it affect the budget? Because they might be able to add extra patrol without costing us more.
And what about private events? I mean, does that go on the person putting on the private event?
Oh, that's this Saturday. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
I
that's-
just like.
You know what I mean?
Let me address a number of things I heard here. First of all, I think it's very important whether it's a private event or whether it's a city-sanctioned event, like the all-class.
But I mean, you're blocking the street off. That's what her.
Understood. Also, it is this Saturday, and that is why it has come up as an extra item tonight, because it is this Saturday. Now, I obtained and gave you guys a copy of a Facebook post. And perhaps street dance is not the best way to memorialize the activity. It's really not indicating.
It's two bands. I mean, it's one DJ and one Vitamin Brown is a band, so.
Yeah, and it's in memory of Monica, but it says here it's also to celebrate the promoter's successful heart transplant. All that being said, it sure feels like a private event, which I would suggest the private party has as much or more of a obligation for maintaining order as the city would have. If there was a city-sponsored event, by all means, I'm gonna say,
Right.
let's
So maybe we should look into this in the future, because when they do have the dances and when they close the streets in Chisholm too, it's not a city, well, maybe they do go and they ask it for it to be a city event when they have the band in front of, just say, Tom and Jerry's. Is it a Tom and Jerry band? Or is it a citywide festival?
Well, and there too,
So if you
Chisholm is how much bigger than
Right, but
Buhl? I mean,
they get
you're
a lot of
looking,
people at these though.
not just, I mean,
They could.
the population of Buhl could be in the street in Chisholm.
Yeah, but again, they
The
could.
entire
Monica was
population.
loved by
I
many.
mean, you're looking at 50
And we
people.
don't know, and I guess it's just a question
Yeah,
of,
and I
I
don't-
think we need to look at this in the future.
I apologize, I don't really want to split hairs, however, this appears to be under one business. All of the content on the street would be coming from one place.
Right.
Not a number of them up and down the downtown area or whatever. The serving and the liability, I would believe, would have some bearing on the provider of the refreshments.
Yeah, and if the city was gonna be liable, whether you were to split it down, whether it was private or public event, I mean, I don't even think the number of people attending would influence whether it's our responsibility to make sure that's taken care of as far as, and other than their responsibility. I mean,
So
How
I
about-
guess,
How about a simple resolution would be an anonymous call to the chief and say, hey, there's an event.
Yeah, I think.
Short
they should
notice,
be
maybe.
Aware of it,
Well-
aware of it.
Yeah.
And maybe we could talk to them in the future, like what would you prefer us to do if we have something like this happening? But I mean, typically it's a Saturday, so they would have more law enforcement anyways, I would assume, because usually on Saturdays, I know that.
We do have to be careful, because we start saying, hey, we want more cops, then we got lots of cops.
Right. And
Yeah.
And
like
then
I
if we
said,
say, hey, we
nobody
don't want
wants a
cops,
cop,
then we got riffraff, so there's a balanced
Right.
act there.
so from what
And honestly, we've
what
had-
I have seen, other than a couple of really private events that aren't gonna happen again, I don't think.
not ever again.
Don't say that.
We're up to about 4 or 5.
Best night of my life, I never wanna do it again.
I said that twice.
We're about up to 4 or 5 events here, and if this conversation can continue from what we were just talking about with this strategic initiative, maybe we're gonna have more requests in the future, because maybe we're gonna be a place where people wanna have a public outdoor get-together like that.
Right.
Absolutely, a policy might be in order to generally oversee these types of events, because they're getting more common.
Yeah, I think it's something we need to look for in the future. But I agree with Renee. I think we need to let Vern know that this is going on this weekend.
But we should also.
Not to wreck the fun, but safety for the
Right.
community.
They're good guys. They were
Yeah.
they were around for the all class and they were great. So
But we should also know if we do notify them of something like this, does that impact how much we get charged? Or is it flexible?
Right.
Agreement with
put it
them
in
is
our
flex-
hours that we request. 'Cause
We
they-
could talk to them like later,
guys-
like in the
Because
future.
I guess I don't know the exact wordage with our agreement, if it.
They don't
can
have to be
flex.
here Sunday morning at the shortstop getting church speeders. They can be here Saturday night instead.
That agreement does expire next year, I believe also, so we'd be looking at it to re-up it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for the future, we might want to look into some kind of
Yeah, it might already be covered, but
It
I
might
guess I
be.
don't know offhand. But I'd like to know.
I'm sure we can find out. All right. We have an motion and we have a second for the first annual Monica Memorial Street Dance, Saturday, September 9th. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Excellent. Oh, hey, we are on to councilors' comments. Randy, you wanna go first?
You look this way.
I'm sorry, I
I
don't
was
know what it
ready.
is.
I know she was. I was like,
I was ready.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
All right, I was taken. Mr. Jamek, this first one is for you. I have a couple. The alley between the 400 block of Robert Street and Memorial Edition, the one with the alley that comes down for one, and then it goes across. Well, anyway, I've had, and so has Mr. Jeffries, and I think he's brought you up there. I have a certain individual that has stated that the alley has gotten so high now that the water is going down now into his sidewalk. Now, I happened to drive by there before I came here because it was raining, and I did videotape it, and it is going down his sidewalk. So I know that he's talked to Mr. Jeffries a lot, correct me, right?
Yes.
And he is looking for a possible answer fix to that portion because it's so high up, it's been built up so much. And the runoff that goes down into his sidewalk isn't correct. I mean, it should not happen. Is that going to be fixed here?
That's always been a punch list, and I was out there the whole time the contractor was building it. I don't know if it's higher. You can't, the garages and the houses on the upper side all
Right.
drain across his alley, so.
But he was stating
I don't know,
that it did.
when we left it, he seemed to be satisfied, but
He's not, and I did get quite a few messages today, and he's got quite a few, and I did go there and I took a video of it, because it was raining, and the water was going down his sidewalk. It was pooling in front of his garage, and I get it, that, you're right, the garages are up here, but he said as the years progressed, that alley was built up more and more each. And I think he's just looking for an answer if it's going to get fixed or if there's some kind of, something that can be done so that water doesn't go down just his sidewalk.
what we tried to do is keep it within the realms of what's there, trying to fix a gravel road. Because I think you brought it up a
With the alley
couple
then.
months ago,
Yeah.
that steep part of the alley off of Roberts. Now, Trent told me that was paved at one time.
Yeah.
So I think we want to look at paving that when we get our paving contractor in town here, to do Damien's and everything else.
Well-
Maybe want to look at what we can do with paving the whole alley, like we did the south part of the alley between Roberts and, I guess it'd be the next 40 or block down, and that's been paved to help that drainage improvement.
Yeah.
And pour an invert in the bottom of that alley and get it to drain towards Whiteside and get it.
It's a tough alley. I mean, nobody has a hill like that for one thing on the other side of it, but I happened to go by Mr. Gouvan's house and again, I saw what he's talking about. It was perfectly raining for me to see it too, so that was something that we really need to get back to Mr. Gouvan about.
Could we not put just drain tile or something in along that side to catch the
Well,
water
it's
and pull
slow,
it?
we've tried putting a V in there and it fills up with gravel. Unless you pave it, that V is not going to stay there. That's the option of paving it. So you put a V in the center of the alley, then the water goes rolling over and going to his property.
Did it do that before there was work performed in the alley?
I'd have to look at my notes. Do you remember what he's?
I was not here for the previous conditions.
I think it was just
I think-
this last fix that's more now.
And I believe Mr. Glavon was under the impression that the issue was going to go away with the work that was going to be done. And he does have information going back a number of years I'm just gonna say he's presented information which we have, which Mr. Jamnik has, that apparently go back a number of years. They haven't been researched or anything, but they've been offered.
But he
this
seems to
information.
think that this last fix made it worse, because it's even higher now and it's,
John, didn't something happen in that alley earlier this year to address that initial concern?
We cut it down, so I don't know how it's higher than it was before. I'll go look at it again. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. That was what Casper came down there with their excavator, and they cut down the center of the alley.
he's got a pooling area right in front of his garage before it goes
Okay.
into, there's a pooling area of water, which I noticed as I was taking my video for him. And it sits there, so that, of course, it's just draining perfectly right down his sidewalk. It's just a little, and it happened behind, on Forest Street here for a while. It happened behind my rental, and it came down, and I never had water come down my sidewalk, and you guys fixed it. I sent a message and I said, you guys, there's pools everywhere of water. Fixed my area, but it just sent all the puddles to the other people's area, which didn't really fix, but now it's fixed. But I never had water coming down my sidewalk before either until these projects came to town. And they took care of mine, but this is about Mr. Glavon, so I did see it, but I've got it on my phone tonight, so he's just asking for a little bit more help.
Okay.
So there's your help. I mean, there's my ask. And what else did I have? I want to congratulate Mr. Towner for his wedding on Saturday. Congratulations, many happy years. No more. One and done.
Definitely.
The other question I have is, I'm sure everybody's seen the cars behind the car wash. Is that allowed? When did this become a parking lot back there? And has it been addressed?
That's a long subject. It's in the works, correct, Mr. Jeffries?
Oh my God, we have a horrible looking site on one side, and now we're starting, is it just a start of something, or, I mean, and people are asking.
Oh, yeah.
Can he do that?
At the moment, as usual, there are more layers to it than meets the eye. The individual that's using the property now is under contract for deed with the owner. My professional opinion remains that activity on that type of land is the owner's onus until that contract for deed is completely fulfilled and title changes to another individual. So right now it falls back to the previous and current owner. Regarding whether or not it's a permissible activity, it appears that the closest we can come at this point is to consider it a storage yard, which is permissible under the issuance of a conditional use permit with the construction of an 8-foot minimum wood or metal fence, which hides what you're storing, but now you've got a fence looking into it, right? A number of these ordinance issues were not necessarily known by either the current owner or the present utilizer of the property. We have begun discussing this with both the present owner as well as the present utilizer to try to come to a workable situation without having to go deeper legally. If we go deeper legally, again, at this point, my conclusion is it's a commercial property of which storage of machinery is allowed as a conditional use. However, that would necessitate the building of a 8-foot minimum high fence to screen that.
which would be pretty costly to do. But you got the other guy on the other side, he's got a pretty meticulous yard. I can't
Yeah.
imagine he's
The whole
mowing
area
that.
is, the whole area is
Yeah,
nice.
it very
Right.
much
And it's
is,
the
right.
entrance to town.
Yeah, you got a salvage yard in the entrance to your town.
So,
Right, as you.
we have offered in concept a potential resolution to the present user of the property. I would prefer not to expose any details of that, except to say, if that proposal may work out, it could solve the issue for pretty much everybody involved.
Got a timeline on it? That's the only thing anybody cares.
Well, I guess the timeline will be this. How long was it a car wash?
Oh, years. How
So
long has it not been?
it's probably never permitted as a car wash. Because a car wash is also a conditional use permit under
By a
the
city ordinance.
Buhl ordinance. To my knowledge, to date, there have been no conditional use permits ever issued in Buhl.
So that goes on to then, if they're not licensed, and I don't even know if these vehicles are not licensed, and I know of another one that's sitting in town on in a driveway kind of sideways. If they're not licensed, isn't that a blight issue?
Well, my interpretation of that, Commissioner Keeley, is that if they're not licensed, even though they're operable, that they could be considered to fall under abandoned. And an abandoned motor vehicle, we have some rights over what can happen with them. You can't have them.
Because we have one also on, I don't know if anybody walks the streets like I do, but on Grant Street, there's a vehicle sitting sideways in a driveway, sideways. And it's like the boulevard and then their old driveway, and it looks pretty, the license is not up to date. It's been sitting there forever. So, do they not get ticketed? Or,
You know, that, I cannot answer whether they're ticketed when they're on private property or not.
but should they not be? I mean, the license isn't up to date.
Right, which again, I would at this point, from my understandings, I would consider that abandoned.
It looks abandoned. If anybody, take a ride, tomorrow and just take a look at this vehicle, and it's been there forever.
Yeah.
So,
So then you have the provisions which allow you to do what with abandoned vehicles?
Yeah.
Which, well, obviously one of those is to have them towed, and the cost goes on to the owner. We've not pursued that as of yet.
it all falls in the same category, whether it be residential sitting there abandoned or up behind the car wash abandoned.
No, that is correct. And for instance, if the presently out-of-date vehicles at the car wash were to get up-to-date licensing on them, well then at that point, it appears to me they would not be able to be considered abandoned, and therefore they would merely, the ordinances are quiet on it, they're not black and white, right? So to me, the closest I've come to being able to support is outdoor storage of equipment and machinery, which goes right back again, the conditional use permit that requires fencing around it.
Sounds like there needs to be some ordinances looked over, maybe set in place.
Yeah.
I think you'd probably need to be more specific with, like, if your only indicator of an abandoned vehicle is that it has an expired tabs, I mean, that could be a lot of vehicles.
Sometimes my work truck has that.
Yeah.
Right, and again, please,
But I think,
that's my interpretation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I would hope that normally we would, if we were gonna consider something an abandoned vehicle, that would just be one factor in the overall determination of it. Like, flat tires, so it hasn't gone anywhere in a long time, or something, grass growing up around it, or something to that effect,
Have
I
be
guess.
more than one criteria.
do we
as
have
opposed to just a
any of
single
these
criteria.
ordinances in place?
I don't follow.
Do we have an ordinance for abandoned vehicles, or do we have any of
I think
these?
they have to have it has to be current.
I don't think we.
It
have
doesn't
ordinance
say
for
it that way. It just
We
talks
don't?
about abandoned vehicles as being part of what might be considered a junkyard. And then the definition of junkyard goes into taking stuff apart for the sake of metal
Salvage.
processing, salvage. And it gets a little convoluted, so do we have any ordinances in
Yeah.
place? That's what I'm trying to kind of
Yeah.
point out. It's a gray area, and I don't want to say it's a judgment call, but when I go looking at a position on it, I try to see what it is I think I could reasonably defend. And because there's nothing specific about license tabs up to date anywhere, there isn't.
Well, I have had one from the city of Chisholm, like for the police.
Right.
Different
City of
city.
But,
Because-
but from the,
But they come over here, there are Blake, the young kids that they hired, they were the Blake kids that came over
Right.
this summer. And they probably are looking at what Chisholm has and used it over here, which we maybe don't have.
And as you know, blight issues in general are very gray rather than black and white, and hard, difficult to validate and, have an absolute for. Maybe you are right, maybe they are doing that. I'm only suggesting that what I've come across in ordinance language is that there is nothing specific on tabs or up-to-date licensing. So my interpretation would be unlicensed means to me that it can't legally be operated on the road, regardless of if it's in great condition. And therefore, since it's not currently licensed, may be considered abandoned. That's the closest I've been able to come to with our ordinances on finding a hook, if you will.
So the moral story is if you got a junk car in your yard, put collector plates on it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, yeah. And that has been sufficient in several other cities.
I guess
Yeah.
you're just looking at our other people in our town that maybe, like the guy next door of this place, I mean, like his yard and everybody surrounding him, beautiful yards.
Right.
And they have to look at that, and that goes
Right.
throughout our city. I mean, if you have a car that's been sitting there, even down by the collapse place, there's a couple vehicles been sitting there forever. When do we stop? When do we keep allowing this? And I think it's something we need to look at.
Well, if we go down the road of a conditional use permit, there'd be a public hearing to approve it, and the neighbor there would be able to speak at that hearing.
Chisholm ordinances, you have to have up-to-date plates and 5 cars. Anything over 5, you gotta have a permit.
Right, but can they
That's where that
enforce-
5 came from.
But can they enforce Chisholm ordinances in Buell?
No, we'd have to make our own
No.
ordinances.
No, we
You would have
can't.
to change the
Right.
ordinance.
Right.
So,
We'd have to have our own.
yeah.
Plus,
Hopefully, the roundabout way of resolving that works out, and that can be done sooner than later. Because,
I would
just
hope,
responsible
I would hope
ownership.
in a month and a half at the most.
yeah, 'cause I'm sure the neighbors there would really appreciate it. I think we'd all appreciate it just coming into
I
town.
think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right,
I was
yeah.
kind of shocked when I drove by
I
there.
was-
I know, it seems like every day.
I never
there's a
go
new
through
one.
there.
I went out of town and I came back and I'm like, where'd that come from?
And then next time there's something else.
More, yeah, it was like every day there's something.
All right.
All right, that's all.
Well,
Wait,
thank you.
I'm not even gonna go there now.
Okay. Anything more?
No.
No?
Are you sure? We got time.
Guys,
Air it out.
I
Well,
can
these
sit here and
These are legitimate concerns, though.
they are,
should
and
need
they're
to be
asked
addressed.
of me, I don't make this
Yep.
up, I mean, I can show you my phone.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually something, someone brought that up to me too, that last one, so.
Oh, and to answer your other question, no, nobody else walks around town as much as you. Maybe 1 or 2 other people.
I look for things, I mean, when somebody points something out, I gotta go find out. I had to walk up to there and look at all the license tabs and there's a
Right.
boat, there's a bus, there's
Read too many Nancy Drew novels when you were younger.
Thank you for doing that, though.
Yeah.
Now, well, regarding the vote.
He's like, no more walking around town.
Well, no, I mean, my understanding is that boat trailer's got a perpetual license and as such does not need a plate on it.
Right,
Right, they do.
they're right.
So there
But
goes that
still.
one, right?
I think it's the bus. I think.
Which is currently licensed.
Oh, it's the car wash initially was an
Yeah,
eyesore.
it
The old
is.
shortstop that's
The whole
vacant.
shortstop area.
All,
We
the
got
whole
that.
thing, and then you start parking things there.
Yeah.
It just makes it worse.
And then there's the school. Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna take care of it one way or another. Positive thoughts,
Yeah.
everybody. Renee, positive thoughts?
Well, congratulations to you.
Thanks again.
And the only thing, I mean, just that school starting, and so then just being careful with like the buses and kids going out in and out of the buses. So that's all I have.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was gonna go to with, 'cause I know my kids get on buses, it's still dark outside, and everybody's used to going back and forth to work and being in their routine. Just gotta remember, it's just that time of year again where you gotta slow down, pay attention, because the little kids are out there, and I mean, I got 3 of them, and not the biggest one's that big, so.
Yeah, and even if it means taking 5 extra minutes when
Right.
you leave the house in the morning, just because that school bus may be there, that's our kids.
Right, right. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, everyone. Nice shirt. And
I brought it out of retirement. Oh, really? Yeah, it's old.
that was just because the heat wave over last weekend.
Oh, yeah, no, that too. It's warm out. It's warm in here.
It is.
The rec board's got Halloween coming up. It sounds like it's going to be quite the event, as it always is, seeming to be the trend. So if anybody has any interest in adding to it or being part of it, reach out to one of the rec board members. It'll be October 29th, I believe, is the
you
Sunday
said.
before Halloween. Plenty of
Guys-
things going on that day.
You guys are doing the parade too.
Yep, parade, party, and then, I hear some rumors about possible
Yeah,
Halloween
possible.
dance.
Yes.
So,
Oh, boy.
Right on.
could be something.
Is there a sign up for floats yet? Or wait till we get closer?
Nothing's gone out yet, but
Okay.
I'm sure if anybody wants to jump the gun, contact a rec board member, we'll make sure it gets added to the list first.
Okay. And as always, any donations to the rec board can be brought to City Hall.
Yeah,
Arrangements made.
absolutely. But I want to see some interesting floats out there, so there should be, 4 coming to you guys?
I'm doing a cakewalk. I cannot do a full.
In the
And she just
parade?
said,
I'm already.
good job.
Yeah, that's true, thank you. Which went great last year, by the way, so.
Changing it up a bit.
Anything else? All right. Mayor's comments. If you're a gardener and you have broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, any of those sort of plants, watch for these white butterflies or moths because they are devastating. They took out all of our Brussels sprouts. Killed them off. Just a thought.
Do you want to send those into my kitchen?
Nope.
Just saying, I've got.
Oh, just a heads up. Harvest season's coming, keep an eye on them. We've noticed that, so if anybody else is gardening too, heads up.
Which also goes into Kelly's garden club meeting
oh,
on
right.
Tuesday, the 12th. At 6 o'clock at the park.
Okay.
Is it 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock?
I think it was 6. I put it on my phone.
And this is the season when people leave zucchinis in unlocked cars and on your doorstep. Yep.
That's a thing.
Too many
I have
zucchinis.
6.
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
worked with the guy. He had a Rubbermaid total zucchinis at the end of his driveway because the zucchini plant went crazy.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Emotion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Anything further? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned at 8:49.